Ever wondered why Netflix seems to know exactly what you want to watch before you do? Often you finish one show and right there at the top of your screen is something that feels like it was made just for you. Like Netflix just read your mind and found you a show that you will absolutely love. Most never really think much about it, but this is one of the most powerful recommendation algorithms that have ever been built. So, how exactly does Netflix know what I may want to watch next? You may wonder. I'm going to try to keep this simple before we go deeper into how the algorithm really works. So, imagine you have a big box of toys, right? Your friend comes to play and you want to give them a toy they'll love. You think, last time, well, they did enjoy the blue car and the robot, right? So, out of these toys here in the box, you may decide, okay, I suppose he's gonna like the robot next, right? So you may choose to skip this one here. Netflix does exactly that. It watches what you want, notices what you like, and then says, hey, based on everything I know about you, you may love this. All right. So let's go a bit deeper. Um, Netflix has globally over 300 million subscribers, right? And at any given moment, those subscribers are staring at a screen trying to decide what to watch, right? So here's a terrifying truth. Netflix has found that if you haven't picked something to watch within 90 seconds, you will probably close the app and leave. 90 seconds. That's it. That's the entire window Netflix has to show you something that grabs your attention, right? And there's another business reality, really. Over 80% of everything that people watch on Netflix is discovered through the algorithm, essentially. Not through searching, not through advertising, and not through word of mouth. Just the algorithm is the store, right? It is your librarian, and it's essentially that friend that also knows what movie you're in the mood for at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, right? So, how does this all really work? Let's dive into the three algorithms that Netflix and other movie recommendation platforms typically use. Um, Again, Netflix doesn't just use one algorithm; it uses a combination of several working together like instruments, right? Um, we will start with the first one. Let's call it the collaborative filtering, or you may just call it the people like you engine, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to picture one giant spreadsheet right here, right? And we'll imagine that this section here on the left has every user that is subscribed to Netflix. And then on the right side here, you'll have every show that's on the Netflix platform, right? So things like uh, has it been watched, right? Has it been finished, or has it been liked, right? So these are all tags for every show that we have on the platform, and all that information is based off of every user uh, that we have right here on the left. And again, just keep in mind that Netflix has tens and tens of thousands of these shows, so they'll be tracking data for pretty much all the shows that they have on the platform. Now, as again, like we've said, the algorithm looks for patterns across all those users. It doesn't just look at you; it does look at people who are similar to you and another person. So, if you and another person both loved, let's say, Breaking Bad, and both watched Ozark twice, right? And you both abandoned every rom-com after about 15 minutes, Netflix figures out that you two have very similar tastes, right? So then Netflix looks at what that other person loved that you haven't seen yet, and it recommends it to you, right? So that is all essentially being done by an algorithm. And this is called collaborative filtering. Collaborative because it is using the collective wisdom of millions of people, right? Not just your own history, and it's essentially like a book club with 300 million plus members, but it's automated. Of course, every user may have read a book, and if they liked it, and you both have the same test, then that book is more likely to be recommended to you, right? So imagine that being the same for the movies. And moving on, we'll go to the second engine. Let's call it engine two, right? So this is content-based filtering, or we may choose to call it the DNA of the show, right? Um, so collaborative filtering, as we looked at, is powerful, but it has a weakness, right? So what about brand new shows that nobody has watched yet, right? Because we know there is no data for those yet. No other users to compare to, because probably no one has watched them already. Um, this is often referred to as a cold start problem. And that's where content-based filtering comes in, right? Netflix employs actual human beings who watch every single show and movie on the platform, and then go on to tag it with detailed descriptors. Um, they're not things like, is it dark or light? Is it fast-paced or slow burn? Does it have strong female or male leads? Is it set in the 1980s? Does it involve crime or a redemption arc, right? So um, essentially look at this as chunking up sections into more like themes, right? Because like like book readers, every movie enthusiast definitely looks forward to something within a movie, right? And this is to help them sort of like try to categorize that. And then Netflix has thousands of these tags for every piece of content. Then when the algorithm knows you love Stranger Things, for example, it doesn't just look for other popular shows, right? It looks for shows that share the same DNA, right? So nostalgic, supernatural, 1980s setting, group of friends, mystery at the center, tense atmosphere, right? So this is how Netflix can then recommend a show you've really never heard of that just feels instantly perfect right in the moment that it shows up on your screen. All right, so let's move on to the third engine, and let's call it the artwork algorithm, right? Or you may call it the thumbnail that speaks to you, if you may like. And here's here's really one that most people have no idea about, and it's genuinely mind blowing, right? When Netflix shows you a movie, it doesn't show everyone the same thumbnail image, right? Netflix shows you a personalized thumbnail, one it predicts you are specifically most likely to click on, right? So how does it do it? It essentially generates multiple different thumbnails for every single title. And for movies, let's say starring four actors, Netflix may have thumbnails featuring each actor separately. If the algorithm knows you watched a lot of movies featuring one particular actor, it will show you the thumbnail that features that actor prominently, because the algorithm knows you're most likely to click on that one, right? Because you like that particular actor, whereas your friend may be motivated by something else or another actor, right? And it tests which thumbnails get clicked by which types of users, and constantly refines its choices, right? So it's like a poster designer who knows essentially which face on the poster will make you stop and look at any particular point in time. Um, there's almost always other factors at play in recommendation engines, regardless of the streaming site. And we may call this the feedback loop, essentially, right? Because if you're interacting with a platform, there is actions you're taking. So every action that you take on Netflix feeds back into the algorithm. Now, this is not really just particularly your thumbs up or likes, right? Or your thumbs down or dislikes. Netflix or any other streaming platform does, in general, watch or track multiple things over time. And these things are weighted differently. I'm going to share a few examples, right? And we're going to look at the weighting that may be offered to any of this by any given platform. So one of the things may be, did you start the show, right? So if you started it, that's weak, but it's positive interest, right? Um, because you may start the show and abandon it, right? Did you finish it? Now that is stronger interest, right? Did you finish it in one sitting, right? Not that you started it and then stopped it and came to it maybe a month later, right? So you just started it and 2 hours later, or if it was a show, maybe by evening, you watch the whole thing. Now that's very strong interest. Did you rewatch it? Right? Perhaps you enjoyed it so much that you invited your friends over to come and watch with you, and you watched it, and they're tracking this because it's your profile, right? So they will know when something is being replayed. So that would be extremely valuable data. Did you pause a lot while you were watching it, right? You may not be as into it as the algorithm thought if you're constantly pausing, perhaps. What time of day are you watching, right? Your mood at 2 a.m. is different from your mood on a Sunday afternoon, right? So, what sorts of movies do you tend to like during these different times? And also, most importantly, what device are you on, right? Mobile viewers often want shorter content, right? So every single one of these signals gets fed back into the machine, updating your profile, making future recommendations a bit more accurate, right? So the more you watch, the smarter the algorithm essentially becomes in recommending content or movies that you will like and interact with. Now, I know you might be wondering, why not just have a platform that only shows movies um, and users can simply just search for what they want. And in that regard, it's true, they could decide to do that. But let's explore the business stacks behind the choice of the recommendation algorithms. Uh, Netflix has calculated that its recommendation algorithms serve them over $1 billion per year, and this data was as per 2024. So you could assume that data has, that number has gone up a little bit over the years, and that is quite a lot of money, right? If you to think about it, because this is not money from advertising, right? It's just from keeping people from canceling because they couldn't find anything good to watch, right? And that is the power of a well-built recommendation engine, because if you can reduce the churn rate or the number of people that are leaving your platform, because whenever they come to your platform, they seem to find exactly something that resonates with them or something that they love, then you can be guaranteed they will keep coming back more and more to look for shows, to watch alone or with their friends or with their family. And that is why it's really a competitive landscape, and these algorithms are one of the main reasons why the leading platforms do lead the way they do. So for those who want to go even deeper into the algorithms used by movie recommendation sites, Netflix does use a particular technique called matrix factorization. You might do a bit more research into this, but at the core, um, it's used at the core of the collaborative filtering. And let's just imagine the giant user show grid that we were looking at earlier, right? Remember when um, we had what essentially we had the users on one side, right? So around here, and then we had every show. Um, okay, so remember we said here we have millions of users, and then here we have every show, right? Ever watched. But now, what happens when you have new shows coming in that no one in this section has watched yet, right? How do you determine how they're watching them, right? Um, okay, let's just imagine that this grid has, millions of empty cells, right? So people haven't watched yet. Matrix factorization essentially is a mathematical technique that fills in those empty cells by finding hidden latent factors or invisible dimensions of test, right? The same way we talked about maybe uh, network um, Netflix employees or any other streaming sites employees, sort of like tagging those movies, right? We could have uh, some of these cells being automatically filled in, right? And it's like finding out what you secretly love about gritty redemption arcs, right? Even before Netflix explicitly labels a show that way, right? Purely from patterns in what you've watched and stopped watching before, right? So if it's something related in some way to what you've watched, it's most likely going to recommend it to you. Netflix also uses reinforcement learning, and this is the same family of AI used to train robots, right? Um, the algorithm doesn't just look at what you did in the past, it actively experiments as well, trying slightly different recommendations and observing which experiments lead to more watching. And then it doubles down on what works. It treats your attention as the reward signal in a way. So, yes, you may wonder why this matters. I mean, in the end, Netflix's algorithm doesn't just help you find good TV, right? It shapes what gets made because Netflix can see which types of shows people actually finish, right? Versus the ones that they go on to abandon. And it uses that data to then go on to decide what content to produce. The algorithm doesn't just have content, it, in a way, influences the entire creative industry. So, yeah, next time you open up Netflix and something immediately catches your eye, you're not just browsing a catalog, just know that you're a target of one of the most sophisticated personalization systems that have ever been built. And it's likely the very reason you prefer Netflix, or your preferred streaming platform to any other platform, because it's always um, got new recommendations to you that actually match your tastes of what you're into. All right. Thank you for watching this part of the series. I will be sharing more algorithms shortly, so feel free to check out other videos and playlists for more algorithms that impact you on the day to day.